Sunday marks 100 days until the 2022 midterms. So we're devoting the whole of today's show to those elections, what they mean and what might happen. Because they are quite possibly the most important midterm elections of our lifetime. And yes, that's said about every election. But let me just point out, if Republicans had had a House majority on January the 6th, 2021, Donald Trump might still be president right now, and Republicans are already trying to stack state election offices in November with big lie supporters who could do what Trump's allies failed to do in 2020, throw the electoral voting system into chaos and create a showdown where the next president would be decided by a vote in the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. History suggests that Democrats are en route to a midterm shellacking, as President Obama once called it. The party in the White House has, with few exceptions, traditionally lost seats in Congress. Democrats are expected to perform so poorly that it's almost a punchline at this point. And yes, President Biden's all-time low poll numbers certainly aren't helping his party hold their narrow House and Senate majorities. But the true picture is more complicated than that. Not only is there a brand new, shiny budget reconciliation bill possibly on the horizon with more money for healthcare, prescription drugs and the climate, but there's also new polling this week suggesting that things might not be as bleak for Democrats as they first seemed. Despite Biden's 33% approval rating and the fact that 80% of voters think the country is headed in the wrong direction, recent polls also show a slight majority still want Democrats in control of Congress. But Democrats' real opportunity is in the Senate, where they have a chance to flip several seats currently held by Republicans. In Wisconsin, the Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes is leading Senator Ron Johnson by 2 points. Barnes got a boost this week when two of his Democratic primary opponents dropped out and endorsed him. In Florida, Congresswoman Val Demings is trailing incumbent Marco Rubio by 7 points, not far off from the margin of error. In Ohio, Republican Senator Rob Portman is retiring. J.D. Vance has worked hard to turn himself into a Trumpian candidate and secured the Republican nomination. He'll face off against Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan in what looks like a very tight race. Vance at 42 and Ryan at 39 in a recent poll. And in Pennsylvania, retiring Senator Pat Toomey of the Republican Party opened the door for Democrats to flip the state. Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman currently leads longtime New Jersey resident Dr. Mehmet Oz by almost 10 points in the latest polling. The stakes are high, the margins are tight, and the suspense is killing me. Luckily, we only have about 100 days until we get the results. Joining me now to talk more about all of this, what it means, what might happen, Cornell Belcher, pollster for both of President Obama's presidential runs. He's now the president of Brilliant Corners Research and an MSNBC political analyst. And Rachel Bitecofer, political strategist and election analyst. She's host of the Cycle newsletter on Substack and author of the forthcoming book, Hit 'em Where It Hurts, How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. Thank you both for coming on the show today. I want to start with a question to both of you. If you had to guess today, I know we don't like predictions anymore, but start with a prediction. Will Democrats lose or keep control of the House and Senate? Cornell.
You know, it's interesting that you asked me that. Today, I would say there's not going to be a wave election. If you asked me this 4 months ago, 5 months ago, I would say the odds are that there's going to be a wave election and they're going to lose. I know we're going to talk about more on, but it's a complicated question because today I think they do hold. Yeah, and Rachel.
Yeah, so I mean, here's one way to explain it, and your intro, I think, is a really good thing that we can use, right? So that Senate map that we're facing this cycle, if we had faced it in 2018, we would have cleaned it up. I mean, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all primed to flip it, and we'd probably really be talking very seriously about Ohio if the nominee was the same. So that's why I mention that, because I want people to understand in-party and out-party fundamentals are really bad, right, for us, but the Senate map is really good, and we could overperform what the fundamentals allow for us because of that, okay? And the House is a different story. So you were showing that we're seeing action in the generic ballot. I started in January talking about how the preference for which party controls Congress would tell us where the conversion, the swing voter pool will lay. And then an enthusiasm gap would tell us whether Democrats, their coalition, which includes those leaning independents, were galvanized to show up. And what we are now seeing, I mean, for 6 months, it didn't move, all right? But the combined force of eviscerating women's right to privacy, Roe, and the committee, what the committee has brought to the public is stunning. I mean, no matter how bad you thought the insurrection plot was, it's 1,000 times worse and documented. So it has provided a momentum change, and now it's about what we do to tap in and enhance it.
So you mentioned momentum. Cornel, jump in.
Double down real quickly on that point, because it's such a good point, and sort of to educate our viewers on the dynamics and the context here. Look, if you go back to 2010, which I had a ringside seat in 2010, and you look at the sort of the metrics, it wasn't like 2 or 3 million people who voted for Barack Obama and Democrats in 2008 said, you know what, I made a complete wrong mistake and I'm going to go the absolute opposite way. No, what you have is an ebb and flow. So these metrics are important, because what we saw in 2010 is we saw large swaths of the Obama coalition actually pull back and not participating in the midterm elections. And that's what happens a lot of times, especially our younger voters pull back, minority voters. So you have an electorate that is older and less diverse in the midterm, and which tends to benefit Republicans. One of the things that I'm seeing in the data right now, which is different than what we saw in 2010, is there is more interest in the midterm election by key Democratic constituencies right now than I saw in 2010. Even though younger voters and sort of minority voters are not in love or happy with Democrats, they are actually saying they're more interested and motivated to vote right now than I saw at any point in 2010.
Cornel, you mentioned younger voters. Rachel, let me bring you back in and say younger voters, for a lot of younger voters, climate is a big issue. How much do you think this new budget reconciliation bill from Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer, which is being described as the biggest climate bill in American history, if it passes, big caveat, will inspire younger voters to get to the polls? How much will that change the game in November?
Yeah, I mean, it's really critical they get this climate bill done. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is disqualification, right? A midterm election is about change and the bias against the status quo. And what Cornel was just pointing out is like the depression within the Democratic coalition does come from what we call in political science the expectations gap, which is the difference between what presidents have to stump on to win hearts and minds and what the American system, which is so diffuse, can deliver, okay? And there's always a gap. But what Republicans did in 2010 was they said, let us purposely create and enhance an expectations gap and depress the Democratic coalition, right? With Obamacare, it's how they framed Obamacare, and it worked, right? So what I would tell people today, especially listening to this channel and other progressive media, is that it's so critically important that we put the onus on the Republican Party. It's true that Manchin and Sinema wouldn't play ball, but at the end of the day, we don't have stuff. We're not going to get it until we roll over the Republicans.
So one of those Republicans who's been a real problem for both the Democratic agenda, but also American public life, democracy, healthcare, public health, Ron Johnson, Wisconsin. Cornel, let's zoom in to the race in Wisconsin for a moment. What can you tell us about the reaction to Mandela Barnes' primary rivals dropping out this week, endorsing him for once Democrats deciding not to fight amongst themselves and focus on the big prize, Ron Johnson's seat?
Well, you don't see it very often, but Democrats because it's like herding cats with Democrats and progressives. But it is very good news for Leader Schumer that they've been able to clear that field, and so that you have the lieutenant governor there doesn't have to spin up his resources, fighting in a primary. And look, 46-44. I want to sort of caution our viewers, because oftentimes sort of delay, our viewers will see, Barnes leads in Wisconsin, and they think, Barnes is going to win Wisconsin because he leads Wisconsin. There's still a lot of voters out there who are still on the fence or still making up their mind. So let's understand a lead doesn't mean necessarily a win. However, you always want to be in front, not behind. But there's a lot of voters out there still on the fence. And I think what Barnes has an opportunity to do is to paint Johnson with the radical extremist agenda that we see coming out of the Republican Party. One of the things that I think is important for Democrats across the country right now is that this is increasingly turning away from a referendum on Joe Biden and more like a referendum on Republican extremism, from everything from climate to women's women's rights to voting rights. And if it becomes a referendum on Republicans more than a referendum on Biden, you got to like Democrats' chances.
And it's easy to do a referendum on Republicans when they're nominating the kind of candidates they're nominating. Rachel, Republican darling J.D. Vance isn't performing as well as they'd hoped. He's virtually tied with his Democratic opponent, Congressman Tim Ryan. He's been under fire this week for suggesting that people in violent relationships shouldn't get divorced. What do you make of the race in Ohio and how tight it is? This is a state that Trump always brags about.
Yeah, and this is why I said, it's important to get some policy gains. We've got a lot of policy. I mean, this has been one of the most historically, effective administrations in history, actually. It was so bad of a problem. Nobody noticed all the stuff they did. So what we want to do now is we want to take these extremist nominees. It allows us to create a national argument. The Republican Party is too extreme, and then tie it down to each of these states. J.D. Vance is too extreme for Ohio. Right. And then you define how that extremeness will affect the individual voters' health, wealth, and safety. And you're really talking about creating a referendum effect, which is, as I wrote months ago, the key to disrupting the midterm effect. We have to make it about them and not about us. So credit claiming is fine, but the attacking is more important.
Cornell, quick question on Florida and North Carolina. Democrats Val Demings and Sherry Beasley, both black women running for the Senate on law and order platforms. One a former judge, another former police officer. Are you surprised to see the campaigns these two women of color are running, or is that just the way it has to be done?
No, I'm not surprised that Val Demings, someone who has a great deal of law enforcement background, is leaning into her law enforcement background, because I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's authentic to who she is. And look, crime and violence will be a big issue, and Republicans have tried to use crime and violence as a hammer to sort of beat Democrats and show them soft on crime. And with these two candidates, it is hard to make the case that these two candidates are soft on crime. So I think it makes a lot of sense for these Democrats to inoculate themselves from one of the biggest hits that you're going to see coming at Democrats in these states, and particularly, and look, this is where sexism has a thing. There are tropes and isms around women that are different than around men. So oftentimes women have to really sort of show that they are tougher and stronger. These are two women who absolutely have the credentials to stand up to this attack.
Quick last question, Rachel. We're out of time, but I've got to ask, you mentioned the map being good for Democrats. That's 2022. The 2024 Senate map looks really bad for Democrats. It's really now or never.
It really is. I mean, here, guys, well, I'll tell you, it's about 2022 is going to determine the governorships in Michigan and Pennsylvania, along with those Senate and congressional things. If we lose anything, we're going to be hurt. If we lose all three, 2024 is going to be very hard to have a free and fair election. Can you imagine a newly minted Republican governor? No.